Hi class, I'm Professor Miller. It's nice to meet you all, and this video is an introduction to our online course on business ethics. To begin with, in teaching a course on business ethics, we have to understand something about the nature of business, that businesses are institutions or organizations which are founded upon the idea of providing goods and services to individuals or groups of individuals in return for some sort of profit, some sort of payment. And our modern capitalist system is based upon the idea that the people who provide the best goods and services will get the best payment and will continue in business. We'll talk quite a bit about that later on in the course, about the nature of capitalism and the free market in which we live, and other numerous issues having to do with business ethics. But to begin with, what I want to talk about, first of all, is the nature of ethics itself. We have a course on ethics, and the question obviously is, what is ethics? And I've asked you as one of your first assignments to respond to questions, and one of the questions you can respond to is, what is ethics? And I'd like to hear from you your ideas about what you think ethics is, what it means to you. Many times we use words and we don't really think about what it is we mean by those words. We have some vague notion of what we mean, but when pressed by someone to tell it, to say what it is we're talking about, sometimes we find that we have trouble. So I'd like you to think about business ethics or ethics in general, what you think ethics is and what it means. In the meantime, I'm going to give you a somewhat technical but very adequate definition that I think covers most of the bases here in terms of what ethics means. If you look at the dictionary, you may see something like ethics has to do with the study of morality. If you look up morality, you'll find that it has something to do with right and wrong, good and bad. But these things are still somewhat vague, and it's not a very precise definition. So perhaps the best definition that I've come across in my many years of teaching is the following, and that is that ethics is the art and science of determining good and bad, or right and wrong moral behavior, i.e. behavior which is of serious consequence to human well-being. And if you choose to add, you could also say to the human environment. Let me state that one more time. Ethics is the art and science of determining good and bad, or right and wrong moral behavior, which is behavior that is of serious consequence to human beings and the environment around us. Now, why do I use this definition? Because, we often talk, in talking about morality, we say, yes, morality is the study of good and bad, but there are many types of good and bad. If you go to the movies, you might say, I like that movie a lot. Other people might say, I really hated it. It was a good movie. It was a bad movie. But whether we think a movie is good or bad doesn't usually make it a moral issue. You might go to a concert, and you might decide that the concert was really good or it was really bad. Again, it's not usually a moral issue. In baking cakes or painting pictures, you might say there's a right way and there's a wrong way. Once again, right and wrong, good and bad, but it's not a moral issue. So, one of the things that makes morality or moral issues, one of the things that constitutes a moral issue is the fact that when you're determining whether an action is good or bad or right and wrong, that you're actually talking about something which is of serious consequence. So, for example, the Ten Commandments tell us that we should not steal, we should not kill. Why? Why not? Well, because stealing and killing obviously is an issue of tremendous harm to somebody. And so moral issues deal with harm, or in some cases, benefit. Generally, we can feel that it's wrong to lie. Why is lying considered bad most of the time? Because when you lie, you are creating a state of mistrust, and sometimes lies can be very hurtful. If we tell lies about people just to get vengeance on them, we may find that the results are pretty drastic. So lying, stealing, killing, all these things are moral issues because of the consequences. In the same way, doing good things for people can be a moral issue because you have a certain action and you want to promote good, and that can be a very good thing. So it makes it a moral action to do good. Although, once again, even doing good can sometimes bring harm. Even though your intentions are good, you may end up doing something which causes greater harm than good. So we have to be careful even about doing good, because it can sometimes be bad to do too much good. I'm sure you can think of situations where parents try very hard to protect their children, for example, and so they are doing good things by protecting them from the evils of the world, and then when they get out of the home and go off to college, they become crazy because they're experiencing for the first time all the possible temptations which they are not immunized against. So again, doing too much good can sometimes be a source of harm. But in any case, ethical issues are a question of harm and benefit. Now, when I say art and science, why do I say art and science? I say art and science because the science part deals with a rational method of determining what is good and bad. And in the course of this study of this semester, we will cover 2 or 3 major theories on ethics, which talk about the ways of determining whether an action is good or bad. So there's a certain science to it. This is a course which we'll use mostly philosophical ethics to approach the question of right and wrong as it applies to business. So there's a philosophical reasoning involved, and this is the scientific aspect of the question of ethics. But there's an art to ethics too, because many times the moral problems we face, or the ethical dilemmas we face, are dilemmas because we are short-sighted. We don't plan ahead, we don't think ahead, and we fail to sort of plan for emergencies that arise. And sometimes we have competing obligations also. Things will crop up where we have made promises to do different people, and the promises are mutually exclusive. So then the issue becomes, how do you fulfill 2 promises which are mutually exclusive? Again, sometimes it's possible to achieve the best result by thinking, to use a very trite phrase, thinking outside the box, thinking beyond the normal sort of restrictions that we place on ourselves. And I'll try to give you some examples of this over the semester. But again, thinking out in ways which are really creative can sometimes solve ethical problems, or even prevent them from arising in the first place. And many times, if you look at the tragic history of technology, for example, and the terrible things that have gone wrong, like the Hindenburg disaster or the space shuttle disasters, many of these could have been prevented if people had simply used a little intelligence, a little foresight, and thought about the consequences of what they were doing, and thought about the consequences of the decisions they made ahead of time. So ethics really has to do with using, not only your logical sense or sort of a scientific approach, but also a certain creativity and reasoning about the possibilities that are before us. So these are some of the things we're going to deal with this semester. And so I wanted to begin by talking about ethics and introducing you to my sort of definition of what ethics is. And I'm sure you may have some questions, and if you do, let me know, and I will try to answer them either through emails or through more videos. All right, it's nice to meet you. Again, I'm Wayne Miller. Have a good day and good luck.